Let me tell you how I became the financial incompetent who secretly controlled my mother's entire business empire. My name is Emma Chin, and for the past 6 years, I've been living what my family calls a modest lifestyle. I drive a 7-year-old Honda Civic. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a decent but not fancy neighborhood. I shop at Target. I clip coupons. To anyone watching, especially my family, I look like someone who's just getting by. My mother, Catherine Chin, built a restaurant empire from nothing. Chin Hospitality Group started with a single dim sum restaurant in San Francisco's Chinatown 30 years ago. Now it's 12 high-end establishments across California, each one pulling in 7 figures annually. Mom's face has been on the cover of Restaurant Business magazine. She's been featured in Forbes. She sits on boards. She speaks at conferences. And she never, ever lets me forget that I'm not her. Emma works in finance, she'd tell people at dinner parties, her tone making it sound like I sold knockoff purses from a truck. Some small firm. Very entry-level work. What Mom didn't know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I was a senior portfolio manager at Cascade Investment Group, one of the most exclusive private equity firms on the West Coast. We managed $3.2 billion in assets. My personal portfolio alone was worth $47 million. And 6 years ago, when Mom's restaurant expansion hit a critical funding gap, I'd structured an anonymous investment vehicle that funneled $6.8 million into Chin Hospitality Group. Mom thought her silent investor was some hedge fund that believed in her vision. Her silent investor was her financially incompetent daughter. I'd done it strategically, not out of love, that had died somewhere around my 16th birthday when she told me I'd never amount to anything because I wasn't hungry like her. I'd done it because I wanted to watch. I wanted to see if success would soften her. If money would make her kinder. If achievement would teach her humility. It didn't. The Thanksgiving dinner where everything unraveled had been planned for weeks. My brother Marcus was flying in from New York with his wife Jennifer. My sister Lily was bringing her new boyfriend, some tech executive she wouldn't stop bragging about. And I was bringing myself, which was apparently the consolation prize nobody wanted. Just don't talk about money, Emma. Mom had texted me 3 days before. It's embarrassing when you try to participate in business conversations. I'd replied, understood. I arrived at my parents' Palo Alto home at 2 p.m. sharp, carrying a store-bought pumpkin pie because Mom had specifically requested I not attempt to cook anything. Your sister is handling the sweet potato casserole, she'd said. She actually knows her way around a kitchen. Dad opened the door. Emma, you made it. How's the job? Still employed, I said smiling. Well, that's something, he chuckled, taking my coat. Your mother's in the kitchen directing operations. Fair warning, she's in rare form today. The downtown location got a bad Yelp review yesterday. I found Mom in her element, wearing a designer apron that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, orchestrating my sister and sister-in-law like they were line cooks. She glanced at me, then at the store-bought pie. Oh, Emma. You didn't have to bring anything. Translation. Your contribution is unnecessary and unwanted. No problem, I said pleasantly. Dinner started at 4 p.m. The table looked like something from a magazine. Custom floral arrangements, gold-rimmed china, cloth napkins folded into swans. Mom sat at the head like a CEO at a board meeting. Dad sat at the other end. Marcus and Jennifer to her right. Lily and her boyfriend Derek to her left. And me, tucked in the middle, the black sheep in the family portrait. The conversation started professionally enough. Marcus talked about his promotion at Goldman Sachs. Jennifer discussed her art gallery opening in Tribeca. Lily mentioned that Derek's startup had just secured Series B funding. $12 million, Derek said proudly, squeezing Lily's hand. Led by Sequoia. That's wonderful, Mom beamed. Emma, isn't that the kind of thing your little firm does? Investments. Similar, I said, cutting my turkey. How much do you manage again? Lily asked with faux innocence. I can't discuss specific numbers, I replied. Confidentiality agreements. Marcus laughed. Come on, Em. Can't be that secretive. Unless you're managing like 50 grand and embarrassed. Dad chuckled into his wine glass. The work is interesting, I said neutrally. Interesting, Mom repeated, her voice dripping with something between pity and contempt. That's what people say when they're not successful. Interesting. Marcus's work is lucrative. Lily's boyfriend's work is revolutionary. Your work is interesting. I nodded, taking a sip of water. That's when Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, and put it face down. Anyway, I wanted to share some exciting news. Chin Hospitality Group is expanding again. We're opening 2 new locations. One in Sacramento, one in San Diego. The contracts were signed last week. Everyone applauded. And, she continued, we're in discussions with our primary silent investor about increasing their stake. They've been with us for 6 years and they've been absolutely instrumental. Anonymous, of course. Very private. But their capital made everything possible. I smiled to myself, stabbing a piece of sweet potato casserole. Mom, that's amazing, Lily gushed. You're going to have 14 restaurants. That's insane. 15 actually, Mom corrected. We're also in talks for a Napa location. Marcus raised his glass. To Mom. The restaurant queen. Everyone clinked glasses. I joined in dutifully. Then Mom's phone buzzed again. And again. She picked it up, irritation flashing across her face. Excuse me, she muttered, stepping away from the table. Probably the downtown manager, Dad explained. They've been having staffing issues. Mom returned 3 minutes later, her jaw tight. She set her phone down and plastered on a smile. Sorry. Work never stops. That's the price of success, Marcus said sagely, like he was quoting a fortune cookie. Mom turned her attention to me. Emma, I've been meaning to ask. Are you still in that same apartment? I am, I said. The 1-bedroom? 2-bedroom, actually. Right. And you're still driving that Honda. It runs well. She shook her head slowly, the way disappointed parents do. You know, at your age I had already opened my second restaurant. I'd bought my first property. I was building something. Different paths, I said quietly. Different paths, she echoed. Is that what we're calling it? She looked around the table. You know what I think the problem is? Emma, you're financially incompetent. The table went silent. I looked up from my plate. You heard me, Mom continued, warming to her theme. You're 32 years old and what do you have to show for it? You rent an apartment. You drive a car that's nearly a decade old. You clip coupons, for God's sake. I've seen them in your purse. Catherine, Dad started. No, Richard. Someone needs to say it. Emma, you can't even manage your own checkbook. How do you expect to build wealth? How do you expect to ever own anything? You have no assets. No property. No investments that I can see. Dad laughed nervously. Embarrassing at her age. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Jennifer studied her plate. Lily looked at me with something approaching pity. Derek. Poor Derek, who barely knew me, just looked confused. I smiled politely. You're probably right. Probably. Mom leaned forward. Emma, I'm trying to help you. You work in finance, supposedly, but you live like you're one paycheck away from poverty. It's honestly embarrassing. When people ask about my children, I talk about Marcus's success at Goldman, Lily's engagement to a tech executive, and then there's you. She said you like it was a diagnosis. I understand, I said calmly. Do you? Mom's voice rose slightly. Because I don't think you do. I think you've accepted mediocrity. I think you've given up. And that breaks my heart, Emma. It really does. Because you could have been something. You were smart. You graduated college. But you just stopped trying. I nodded slowly, reaching for my phone under the table. I worked with your sister last year on her financial planning, Mom continued. She showed me her investment portfolio. Do you even have a portfolio, Emma? Do you have a 401k? A savings account with more than a few $1,000s. I opened my encrypted messaging app. And before you say it's none of my business, it is my business. You're my daughter. And watching you fail like this, watching you waste your potential, it's painful. You're financially incompetent, Emma. That's the truth. You can't manage money. You make poor decisions. And unless you get serious help, you're going to end up with nothing. I typed carefully. Withdraw all capital from Chin Hospitality Group effective immediately. Transfer funds to secondary holding. Execute within 24 hours. Authorization code, EC2847. I hit send. My investment advisor, David Park, responded within 15 seconds. Confirmed. Initiating withdrawal protocols. You sure about this? I typed, absolutely certain. David, understood. They'll receive formal notice within the hour. Capital withdrawal begins Monday. Mom's phone started vibrating on the table. She glanced at it, annoyed, and declined the call. As I was saying, Mom continued, you need to make changes, Emma. Real changes. Not these half measures. You need to. Her phone vibrated again. Then again. He snatched it up. What is it now? She answered. Catherine Chin. Her face changed instantly. What? No, that can't be right. We have a contract. They can't just. Hold on. She stood up abruptly and walked to the kitchen, her voice sharp and panicked. The table sat in awkward silence. What's going on? Lily whispered. No idea, Marcus muttered. I cut another piece of turkey, chewing slowly. Mom came back 2 minutes later, her face pale. I need to make some calls. Excuse me. She disappeared upstairs. Dad looked confused. Should we continue eating? We sat in uncomfortable silence, pushing food around our plates. Upstairs, we could hear Mom's voice rising and falling, urgent and stressed. She came down 10 minutes later, her makeup slightly smeared. She was holding her phone like a weapon. We need to postpone dessert, she announced, her voice tight. There's been a development with the business. What kind of development? Marcus asked. Our primary investor is withdrawing their capital. She said it like she was reporting a death in the family. All $6.8 million. Effective immediately. The table erupted. What? Dad stood up. They can't do that. We have contracts. Apparently they have an exit clause we didn't fully understand. They're exercising it. But that's... Lily's voice trailed off. Mom, what does that mean? It means we're in serious trouble, Mom said, her voice cracking slightly. That capital is funding our current expansion. It's backing our new locations. Without it, we'll have to halt construction. We might have to close the Sacramento and San Diego deals. We could lose our deposits, nearly $800,000. Can't you get another investor? Derek asked. Mom shot him a look that could have curdled milk. Derek, do you understand how investment banking works? Do you have any idea how long it takes to secure $6.8 million in capital? We don't have time. The construction contracts have deadlines. The leases have penalties. There has to be something you can do, Marcus said. I'm calling everyone I know, Mom said, already dialing. But this is Thanksgiving week. Nobody's answering. And even if they were... She shook her head. This is catastrophic. I took a sip of wine. Mom spent the next hour on the phone, pacing the living room while the rest of us sat at the table in varying states of shock. I could hear fragments of her conversations. Yes, I understand it's a holiday, but this is an emergency. $6.8 million immediately. Anonymous investor, I never even met them. 6 years of partnership and they just... Finally, she came back to the dining room. Her hair was disheveled. Her mascara had run slightly. She looked 10 years older than she had an hour ago. I need to go to the office, she announced. Richard, we need to call our attorney. Marcus, can you reach out to anyone at Goldman who might? Mom, it's Thanksgiving, Marcus said gently. I don't care what day it is, she screamed. Then softer, I don't care. My business is collapsing. Everything I built is falling apart because some anonymous coward decided to pull out at the worst possible moment. Did they give a reason? Jennifer asked quietly. None. Just a formal withdrawal notice. People told. Professional. Mom's hands were shaking. 6 years. 6 years they believed in this company and then suddenly on Thanksgiving they just destroy it. I set down my fork. Maybe they had their reasons. Every head turned to me. What? Mom's voice was dangerous. I'm just saying, I continued calmly, maybe the investor saw something they didn't like. A risk they couldn't justify anymore. Investors make calculated decisions. Emma, this is not the time for your interesting observations about finance, Mom snapped. I'm just trying to help, I said. Help? Help? You can barely manage your own checking account, and you want to give me business advice. Mom's voice was rising again. You know nothing about running a company. You know nothing about securing capital. You work some meaningless job at some nobody firm, and you think you can explain investor psychology to me. I nodded slowly. You're right. What do I know? Nothing, Mom confirmed. You know nothing. The table had gone silent again. Mom grabbed her purse. Richard, get the car. We're going to the office. The rest of you, just enjoy your Thanksgiving. She stormed out. After they left, the dinner dissolved quickly. Marcus and Jennifer claimed they needed to get back to their hotel. Lily and Derek made similar excuses. Within 30 minutes, I was alone in my parents' dining room, looking at the ruins of Thanksgiving dinner. I helped myself to a slice of pumpkin pie, the store-bought one I'd brought, and sat in Mom's chair at the head of the table. My phone buzzed. David Park. Withdrawal executed. Legal notices sent. They'll have until Monday to respond, but the contracts are airtight. Full capital return within 72 hours. You want me to prepare the public filing? I typed back, not yet. Let them scramble first. David, you're ice cold, Emma. Me, I learned from the best. The weekend was quiet. I didn't hear from my family, which wasn't unusual. They typically didn't contact me unless Mom needed someone to feel superior to at a family function. But Monday morning my phone started ringing. First Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Marcus. Voicemail. Then Lily. Voicemail. Finally, at 11:47 a.m. Mom called. I answered. Hello. Emma. Her voice sounded like she'd been crying. I need to talk to you. I'm at work, Mom. Can this wait? No. It can't wait. Can you meet me for lunch? I checked my calendar. I had a meeting with a tech CEO at 1 p.m. about a $90 million acquisition, but I could move it. Where? Anywhere. Please. The cafe near my office. Noon. I'll be there. She was already seated when I arrived, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her power suit seemed too big. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes. Emma, she said as I sat down. Thank you for coming. Of course. What's going on? She laughed bitterly. What's going on? What's going on is that my business is dying. The investor withdrawal triggered a cascade. 2 of our banks are calling in loans early. Our credit line is being reviewed. We had to halt construction on both new locations, and we're going to lose $800,000 in deposits and penalties. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? She looked at me sharply. Because you didn't seem particularly sympathetic on Thursday. You were upset. I didn't want to make it worse. Mom rubbed her temples. The attorney says there's nothing we can do. The investor had an ironclad exit clause. They're legally entitled to full capital return within 72 hours. We have to liquidate assets to make it happen. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate. Mom's voice cracked. Emma, this is everything I built. 30 years of work. And it's crumbling because some faceless investor decided I wasn't worth it anymore. I sipped my water. Why did you want to meet? She took a deep breath. I need help. What kind of help? Financial help. I need to borrow money. Just temporarily. Until we can secure new investment. Maybe $200,000 to cover the immediate shortfalls. I'll pay you back with interest. I promise. I set down my glass. Mom, you just spent Thanksgiving telling me I'm financially incompetent. That I can't manage my own checkbook. That I'm an embarrassment. And now you want to borrow money from me? Her face flushed. I was upset about the Yelp review. I didn't mean those things. You seemed pretty convinced. Emma, please. I know I was harsh. But I'm desperate. The business is everything. And you're my daughter. Please. I looked at her for a long moment. I don't have $200,000 to lend you. Her face fell. Emma. But, I continued, I know someone who might be able to help. Let me make a call. Hope flickered in her eyes. Really? You know someone? Potentially. Give me a few minutes. I stepped outside and called David Park. Emma. How'd it go? She just asked to borrow $200,000. He laughed out loud. You're kidding. Not even a little. How much did the withdrawal impact them? Catastrophically. They're scrambling to cover the capital return. They'll have to sell assets, probably one of their mid-tier properties. And the bank recalls are going to hurt. I'd estimate they're looking at a $3.2 million shortfall total. Perfect. You want to watch them burn, don't you? I want them to understand, I corrected. There's a difference. Barely. He paused. What are you going to tell her? The truth. Just not yet. Let her suffer a little longer. Ice. Cold. I hung up and went back inside. Mom looked at me hopefully. I made some calls, I said sitting down. It's complicated. Complicated how? The person I know who has that kind of capital. They'd want something in return. Probably equity in Chin Hospitality Group. Mom's face hardened. I'm not giving up equity. Not to anyone. Then I'm not sure how I can help. She stared at me. You're serious. You asked for help. I'm telling you the options. Capital doesn't come free, Mom. You know that better than anyone. But this is family. Is it? I met her eyes. Because on Thursday you made it pretty clear I'm not really part of this family's success story. I'm the embarrassment. The incompetent one. The failure. Emma, I said I didn't mean. Do you know what I do for a living, Mom? She blinked. You work at some investment firm. Cascade Investment Group. I've never heard of it. No, you wouldn't have. We're private. Exclusive. We manage $3.2 billion in assets for ultra-high net worth individuals and institutions. I'm a senior portfolio manager. I oversee 8 figures in investments personally. Mom's mouth opened slightly. My salary is $340,000 annually, not including bonuses. Last year my bonus was $1.8 million. I live in a modest apartment because I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I drive a Honda because it's reliable and I don't care about cars. I clip coupons because I think it's wasteful to pay full price for things I can get on sale. Emma. And 6 years ago, I continued, my voice level, when Chin Hospitality Group needed $6.8 million to expand, when no traditional investor would touch you because your debt-to-equity ratio was too high and your expansion plan was too aggressive, I created an anonymous investment vehicle specifically to fund your dream. The color drained from her face. I was your silent investor, Mom. For 6 years I believed in you. I funded you. I made your expansion possible. And on Thursday, while eating turkey at your table, you called me financially incompetent. Her hands started shaking. So I withdrew my capital. All of it. Because I realized something. You were never going to see me as successful. You were never going to respect me. Because if you acknowledged what I'd accomplished, you'd have to acknowledge that you were wrong about me. And Catherine Chin is never wrong. Emma. Her voice was barely a whisper. You're the investor. I was the investor. Now I'm just your financially incompetent daughter who can't manage her checkbook. Tears started running down her face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. That was the point. I wanted to see if you could love me without knowing what I'd accomplished. If you could respect me without seeing my bank account. But you couldn't. You needed me to be lesser than you. You needed me to be the failure so you could be the success. Please, she sobbed. Please, Emma. I'll apologize. I'll tell everyone. I'll make it right. It's too late for that. The business will survive or it won't. That's not my problem anymore. I stood up. You asked why the investor withdrew. Now you know. They saw something they didn't like. A risk they couldn't justify. Specifically, they saw how you treat people you think are beneath you. And they decided they didn't want to fund that anymore. I picked up my bag. Emma, please don't do this. I'm your mother. Yes, I said quietly. You are. And that's the saddest part. I walked out of the cafe. Behind me I could hear her crying. The next few weeks were difficult for Chin Hospitality Group. The news spread through the industry. Anonymous investor withdraws $6.8 million. Company forced to sell assets. Expansion plans halted. Mom had to close 2 underperforming locations to cover the capital return and bank recalls. The Sacramento and San Diego deals fell through entirely. Marcus called me once. Emma, is it true? Were you really Mom's investor? Yes. And you just destroyed her business? I withdrew my investment. What she did with her business after that was her choice. She's devastated. I imagine she is. You're really not going to help her? She called me financially incompetent in front of the entire family, Marcus. She humiliated me. She's been humiliating me for years. And you all sat there and let it happen. So no, I'm not going to help her. He was quiet for a moment. She's our mom, Em. Then you help her. You're so successful. You're at Goldman Sachs. Surely you can spare $200,000. It's not that simple. No, I agreed. It never is. I hung up. Lily sent a text. Mom says you sabotaged her business. That's so messed up, Emma. I replied, I withdrew my personal investment from a company whose leadership I no longer believed in. That's called capitalism. She didn't respond. Dad called once, leaving a voicemail. Emma, sweetheart, I know you're hurt. But your mother is struggling. Can we please talk? I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. 3 months later I got a letter. It was handwritten from Mom. Emma, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did. How I treated you. How I made you feel. Losing the business, or most of it, forced me to look at myself. Really look. And I didn't like what I saw. I saw someone who measured worth in dollars and success in achievements. Someone who couldn't see her daughter's value because she was too busy comparing her to an impossible standard. You were right. I needed you to be lesser so I could be greater. And that's not love. That's ego. I don't know if we can ever repair this. But I wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what you accomplished. I see the strength it took to walk away. I see the person you are, not the person I wanted you to be. I'm proud of you, Emma. I should have said that years ago. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in my desk drawer and went back to work. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. But maybe someday we could start building a new one. Just not today. A year later, Chin Hospitality Group stabilized at 8 locations. Smaller than Mom's dreams but sustainable. She sold the Palo Alto house and downsized. Dad retired early. They seemed, if not happy, at least quieter. I was promoted to executive vice president at Cascade. My portfolio grew to $89 million. I bought a condo, still modest, still me, and started a foundation that funded women entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. And every Thanksgiving I volunteered at a community dinner downtown. Because some families are born. And some families are chosen. And I'd finally learned the difference.